themselves to observe the situation before a great shift in the circumstances occurs, and then seize the moment when it comes? Ains silently looked at Narbril, who was floating in the air. The night wind blew softly. Any undead who sought to exploit this perceived weakness would instead be destroyed in one hit by a swing of Ain's great swords. If I taught you everything, how would you learn? Figure it out yourself. Yes. My deepest apologies. Ains had been somewhat shaken by this. He forcefully jerked his head back to double-check the distance between himself and the doors to the graveyard, and to see if the guards could still see him from there. However, that said, time is still getting quite tight. It can't be helped, I guess I'll have to carve a path through them. Ains unleashed his power. Create mid-tier undead, Jack the Ripper. Create mid-tier undead, Corpse Collector. After using his skill, 2 undead creatures appeared. One of them was dressed in a trench coat and wore a mask which showed a smiling face. Its fingers ended in large, sharp surgical scalpels. The other was a massive, brawny creature, but its body was covered in pustules, and the bandages which wrapped its entire body were stained yellow. There were many metal hooks all over its body, linked by metal chains to just as many moaning skulls. Kill them. The 2 undead obeyed Ain's orders and laid into the surrounding undead horde. Though there were only 2 of them, they were stronger by far. As Jack the Ripper severed limbs with each swipe of its scalpel hands, and the Corpse Collector wrenched off the heads of the undead with its chains, Ains continued using his skills. Then, let's take care of things on this side too. Those skills were Create Low-Tier Undead, Wraith, and Create Low-Tier Undead, Bone Vulture. After summoning several of them, he ordered, chase away any intruders that enter the graveyard. Killing adventurers is fine, but do not kill the guards. The wraiths' bodies shimmered and vanished, and the bone vultures spread their wings and flew up. Now that his work was done, Ains smiled to himself. The low-tier undead were there just in case some adventurers used flight magic to reach the enemy's location and steal the credit for his hard work. Then, let's go. As the 2 summoned undead made a brutal display of their skills, Ains charged into the greatly thinned ranks of the undead horde. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Only Narbril remained with Ains by the time they reached the chapel at the heart of the graveyard. Several suspicious-looking fellows were standing in a circle in front of the chapel, apparently conducting some kind of ritual. They all wore crude black robes which covered their entire bodies, and which varied in both texture and color. Their black head cloths hid their faces and only showed their eyes, while the wooden staves they carried had strange carvings on their ends. They were short, and by the way they carried themselves, they were probably all men. The only exposed face belonged to the man in the middle, and he looked like he was undead. He was well dressed, and seemed to be concentrating on the black stone that he held in his hand. The wind carried whispered words to Ain's ears. The voices in the air rose and fell in unison, and it sounded like some sort of chanting. However, it did not sound like a requiem to the dead, but more like some sort of dark ritual which blasphemed against the deceased. Should we ambush them? Narbril asked. However, Ains shook his head. It wouldn't help. Besides, it seems they've already spotted us. Ains had no concealment-related skills, so he simply strode directly over to them. Although he could have avoided the lights of the graveyard, all the opposition would need to do was use dark vision in order to see as though it were broad daylight. In addition, Ains had personal experience of the fact that summoned monsters and their summoners were linked by a mental bond. Since he had defeated so many undead on the way here, they must have known that Ains was approaching them through their bond. In fact, there were already several people looking at Ains and Narbril. Given that they had not launched an attack yet, they might have something to say. Having come to that conclusion, Ains decided to approach them head-on. As Ains and Narbril walked below the magical lights, the suspicious group of people took a stance, and one of them said to the man in the center, "Khajiit-sama, they're here." "All right," Idiot confirmed. No, he might have been faking it. First, let's listen to what they have to say. Ah, what a lovely night. Don't you think it's wasted on a boring old ritual? Humph, I'll decide whether the time is right for a ritual. Come to think of it, who are you anyway? How did you break through that horde of undead? The man standing in the center of the circle, his name was Khajiit, unless that was an alias, and he was probably the highest ranked of all the people present, asked Ains that question on behalf of the others. I'm an adventurer on an assignment, looking for a missing young man. I trust you know who I'm talking about, even if I don't state his name. The other members of the group took a stance, which confirmed in Ains' heart that they were not innocents who had been dragged into the matter. Under his helmet, Ains smiled bitterly at Khajiit, who was looking around the surroundings. Just the two of you? Where's the rest of your party? Oi, what kind of question is that? Or maybe he's trying to see if there's anyone lying in ambush. Still, he should have thought a little before opening his mouth. Based on that, I can be sure he's just a pawn. Ains tiredly shrugged as he replied, Yup, just the two of us. We flew over here with a flight spell. You're lying, that's impossible. Ains sensed that there was some kind of meaning behind that curt retort. Thus he asked, You don't have to believe it, but let's get back to the main topic. If you let the boy return home safely, I can spare your life. How about it, Khajiit? Khajiit glared at the foolish disciple who had blurted out his name. And you are? Before that, there's something I'd like to ask. Is there anyone over there besides you lot? Khajiit looked coldly at Ains. We're the only ones, surely it's not just you. There should be someone with a piercing weapon among you, planning to ambush us? Or are you hiding because you're afraid? Fufu, you checked their bodies not bad. Suddenly, a female voice rang out from the chapel. A young woman slowly emerged into the light, and every step she took was accompanied by the clattering of metal against metal. They found me out, so there's no point hiding. Speaking of which, I only hid, because I can't use the conceal life spell. The woman grinned, in response to the somewhat angered Khajiit. That reply aside, they still haven't trotted out Nfiria as a hostage. Perhaps Nfiria's already dead. Just as Ains was thinking along those lines, the woman asked, May I know your name? I'm Clementine. Pleased to meet ya. Well, it's kind of pointless to answer your question, but I guess I'll tell you anyway. My name is Mammon. I've never heard that name before. How about you? I haven't heard of it myself, and I've gathered information on all the high-ranked adventurers in the city, so how is it I've never heard of a Mammon among them? Still, how did you know it was here? The dying message pointed to the sewers. The answer is under your cloak. Show me. You a pervert, lewd. As she said that, the girl's, Clementine's, face twisted. She had a grin so wide it nearly reached her ears. Just kidding, you mean these? Clementine threw open her coat, revealing what looked like scale mail, whose individual plates had mismatched components. However, Ains' excellent vision saw the truth immediately. Those were not the metal plates which made up scale mail. They were countless adventurer plates. Platinum, gold, silver, iron, copper, even mithril and orichalcum. All these were the proof of all the adventurers Clementine had been killing, the trophies taken from her hunts. Innumerable vengeful groans seemed to haunt the metal plates clinking. It was these prizes of yours which led me to you. A look of confusion came over Clementine, and Ains did not intend to explain himself. Nabe. Deal with Khajiit and the other men. I'll take care of this woman. With that, he quietly warned Nabe to watch out above. Understood. Khajiit's expression was somewhere between a sneer and a grin. The cold-eyed Narbril, on the other hand, showed nothing on her face. Clementine, let's kill each other over there. Ains immediately set out without waiting for Clementine to respond. He was very confident that she would not reject the challenge, and the sound of her lazy footsteps behind him was ample proof of that. Once they had gotten some distance away, a thunderous, eye-wateringly bright discharge of lightning erupted between Narbril and Khajiit. As though on cue, Ains and Clementine turned to look at each other. Could it be those people I killed in that store were your friends? Are you mad because I killed your buddies? Clementine continued in a mocking tone, You fufu, that magic caster was so funny. Until the end he believed that someone would save him, But how could he hold out that long against my attacks with just that little bit of health? Or could it be he was hoping you would save him? Sorry, I killed him. Clementine was all smiles. Ains looked at her, and shook his head. No, there's no need to apologize. Really? Well, that's a shame. It's fun to piss off those people who get all emotional when their friends come up. Oi, why aren't you getting mad? You're no fun. Or could it be they weren't your friends? Well, under the right circumstances, I might have done the same thing as you. So blaming you for it would be hypocritical. Ains slowly raised his greatswords. Still, they were tools for building my reputation. Once they returned to the inn, they would have spread word of my deeds to the other adventurers. They would have told everyone about how the two of us were heroes, who drove off the wise king of the forest by ourselves. And now you've gotten in the way of my plans. That greatly displeases me. Clementine seemed to have sensed something in Ains' tone, and she laughed uncontrollably. Really now, oh woe is me, to have made you mad. Oh yes, it was a poor decision to fight me. That pretty girl's a magic caster, right? Then she won't be able to beat Katsi-chan though. If you two swapped out, maybe you could have won. Though that girl couldn't beat me either. Nabe alone would be more than enough for you. Don't be silly. How could a measly little magic caster beat me? It'll be over in 2 or 3 blows. It's always been like that, I see. So you're that confident in your abilities as a warrior? Yup, it goes without saying. No warrior in this country can beat me. No, wait, almost no warrior in this country can beat me. Is that so? Well, that gave me an idea. I shall give you a handicap and have my revenge on you at the same time. Clementine's eyes narrowed, and for the first time she had a look of annoyance on her face. According to the info from those chaps in the Windflower, there's only 5 people in this country who can give me a good fight. Gazef Stronov, Gagarin of Blue Rose, Lusenberg Albelian of Red Drop, Brain Unglaus. Also, the retired Vestia Croft D. Lofen, though none of them could beat me even if they went all out. Not even if I was without the magic items from my country. Clementine smiled to Ains. That smile was a disgusting one. I don't know what sort of ugly face is under that helmet of yours, but there's no way that I, Clementine-sama, one who's left humanity behind and stepped into the realm of heroes, could possibly lose. In contrast to the agitated Clementine, Ains' reply was calm and composed. Because of that, I will give you a handicap. Under no circumstance will I use my full strength on you. Part 4. Twin Maximize Magic Electrosphere. 2 balls of lightning, each nearly twice the normal size, appeared in Narbrel's open palms and shot forth, and then they struck. The electrospheres, their destructive power greatly augmented, expanded rapidly. The electrical pulse that spread from them was huge and lit the graveyard as if it was in broad daylight. The magical lightning vanished as quickly as it had appeared, taking its power with it. All of Khajiit's minions were on the ground. Only one person remained standing. Really, why didn't you fall like those other inferior lifeforms, caterpillars? Could it be that you cast the energy immunity electricity spell? Narbrel asked as she noticed the faint burn marks on Khajiit's face. If those were there, then he should have cast protection energy electricity, a lower-tiered defensive spell than energy immunity electricity. Narbrel felt it was a shame that she could not exterminate all the pests in one go, and then she consoled herself with the thought that all this was still within acceptable parameters. After all, it would have been boring to have finished everything off with just one spell. You aren't just a regular idiot, but an idiot who can cast 3rd-tier spells, aren't you? An idiot? An inferior life form, might, like yourself, dares call me an idiot. Narbrel wrinkled her eyebrows. Anyone who makes a mess of my plans is an idiot. Especially an idiot who doesn't know the meaning of strength and came here to find their death. My preparations are finally complete. Now behold the supreme power of the Orb of Death that has drunk its fill of negative energy. Khajiit raised the orb in his hand. It was a fairly rough-looking gem that gleamed like a lump of blackened steel. It had not been polished and it looked more like a lump of ore than anything which had been manufactured. Narbrel sensed something like a heartbeat coming from the orb. Suddenly, the 6 disciples of Khazit, who had been electrocuted by the electrosphere, climbed to their feet, but those were not the motions of a living, thinking creature. The 6 disciples were now under necromantic control, and shakily drew themselves up between Narbril and Khazit. Narbril watched the scene before her with doubt and puzzlement in her eyes. These zombies are my opponents? Fahahaha, that's right. But there'll be enough for you. Attack. Zombies, being the least among the undead, could not use magic, and as the half-dozen former disciples lunged at her with claws outstretched, Narbril cast a spell on them. Electrosphere. Once more a white globe shot forth. Where it struck, it generated a pulse of electricity which consumed all the disciples within its radius. The lightning vanished after a moment, and the disciples collapsed to the ground once more. Although she had easily dispatched her enemy, there was no joy on Narbril's face. Create undead could not produce multiple undead at once. This must have been the result of Khazit using some sort of support skill. Narbril turned her gaze to the black sphere in Khazit's hand. It would seem the power of that item extended to letting him control multiple zombies at once. Still, this man had some nerve calling an effect like that supreme power. To Narbril, the rulers of the great tomb of Nazarick, the 41 supreme beings who had created her, and all her comrades, were the only entities who deserved to be described as supreme. Just as unhappiness filled Narbril, Khazit exclaimed in delight. That's enough. You've taken in more than enough negative energy. The black sphere in Khazit's hand drew the graveyard's darkness into itself, and it seemed to be glowing faintly. The slow heartbeat she felt from earlier seemed stronger than before. It would seem that ignoring it would be problematic in the future. Having come to that conclusion, Narbril was about to make a move when she heard something. It was the sound of something whistling through the air. Narbril recalled her master's warning and flung herself to the side. A massive creature rushed past Narbril's body, and after hovering behind Khazit, it landed on the ground. It was a composite entity that stood 3 meters tall, made of countless human bones. It was designed to resemble a being with a very long neck, wings, and 4 legs, a dragon. Its tail, also made from innumerable bones, lightly thumped the ground. This was the monster known as a skeletal dragon. Narbril did not consider monsters of its level strong, but the skeletal dragon had a trait which was very dangerous to Nabe. For the first time, a look of surprise appeared on Narbril's face, which then stiffened up. Fahahaha. Khazit's mad laughter echoed through the surroundings. Skeletal dragons and their absolute immunity to magic are a magic caster's worst nightmare, aren't they? If Nabe could not hurt the skeletal dragon with magic, then, her master had ordered her to carry a sword with her in case of emergencies. She now removed it from her belt, along with its sheath, and then secured her sword so it would not easily slip out of the sheath. I'll beat you to death. Narbril strode forth. The skeletal dragon swiped its forepaw in response, but Narbril nimbly evaded its attack. The wind of its passing tossed up Narbril's hair, as she rushed in at the skeletal dragon's chest. Then, she concentrated all her strength and swung with all her force. Her blow sent the 3-meter-tall skeletal dragon flying. Shortly afterwards, it hit the ground with an earth-shaking crash. What? Khazit's jaw dropped as he stared. Skeletal dragons were made of many smaller bones, and they certainly looked light. However, they only appeared light. Magic casters, who spent their days pursuing greater magic power, should not have had enough strength to pull off a move like that. Khazit hurriedly fled behind the skeletal dragon's vast body, and then he shouted, "You, who are you?" "A Mithril, no, an Orichalcum-ranked adventurer. There shouldn't be anyone like that in this city. Did you pursue Clementine, or myself to this place?" Khazit grit his teeth in agitation. Well, panicking like this does suit an inferior life form, click beetle, like yourself. You. Crafting this skeletal dragon had required 2 months of elaborate rituals, and an immense quantity of negative energy. How could it be beaten so easily? He had worked and planned many years for this. Just as Khazit was turning red with rage, the skeletal dragon creaked as it slowly got up. There was a massive fissure in the bones which formed its chest, which spilled bone fragments as it moved. It could not take another hit like this.